Hey everyone, welcome to the Good News Podcast, and we have a guest who most of you will likely know. This is Katrina Holtum.
Hello.
Katrina is my wife. I am her husband, and we have just come off a very interesting summer. As you may or may not know, we had a summer sabbatical. Katrina gets a summer sabbatical every year because she's a teacher, so she has the summers off, which is awesome. This year being the 25th anniversary of our time at NBUC, we decided as a church that it was a good time for me to take a summer sabbatical, to be off with Katrina, to celebrate that way in a very quiet, reflective, just taking some time and space after an amazing, blessed 25 years plus together, because I was here as a student before I started in full-time ordained ministry.
Yeah.
But also after COVID, and it's been just a very challenging few years, and so it just felt like the right time to do it. It was a great gift, a great blessing. We thank everyone who was part of enabling that to happen, and really encouraged us to that. That was huge to me. The encouragement that there was no questions asked except for way to go, so proud of you and grateful for you, and just really felt that love from this community, and that's awesome. People have been asking, how was your summer? How was the sabbatical? Katrina's going to ask me a few questions to try to get at some stuff, and she'll be giving some comments and reflections as well. But I think, as I've said to many people, if I had to summarize in 2 words, it would be space. It was just very spacious. I slowed down more than I ever have. I think my entire life, it's fair to say. And then the other word was connection. Just had deep and beautiful connections with people who we love, and it was great just to have that extra time, that longer time, to be sometimes with people we hadn't seen for years because life just doesn't seem to allow it, and sometimes people who are very close to us, our family and friends, my parents who we saw almost every week. So just connection, lots of time of connection. And, it was. Yeah, and part of that connection was also time with Katrina, and that was great as well.
Yeah, I mean, you say I get a sabbatical every summer, which is very true. Being a teacher, having that time off, and it is always very refreshing and very re-energizing. You need that space. I really do, to go back and be able to do the job again in September. But this was quite different, being off with you and you having all that time. Not like we wouldn't do things together over the summer usually, but this was just all summer.
Yeah, I wouldn't be there when you woke up normally saying, "Hey, what do you want to do?"
Exactly. So, and yes, we did have a little bit of a feeling out the pace on the first week, I have to say. And
I was pretty excited to have time for some other things.
Yes, yeah. So we did a lot of those other things, and yes, needed a day of rest, I think, on the Monday after we started.
I think it was like 200 plus kilometers of biking over the weekend. It was 3 or 4 games of golf.
Games, and there was a lot happening, but it was all great. But we eased up a little bit.
It might have been a bit of an unsustainable pace, and actually not the purpose of the whole time.
Exactly. So, but it was fun. Just again, it was fun, and doing just those things together was just great. So it was lots of great conversation. So it was different for me as well, really beautiful time. So it was a great experience, and I think going into it, when you were talking about when you were sort of communicating that this was going to happen, and the mantra was sort of to play and pray. So I think talk about a little bit about how did that come to life? What did that end up looking like? Because I don't know that you really. You knew that's what you wanted to do, but how did that end up?
For sure. Well, and how that came to be was I was praying. I was out on a prayer walk. This was probably in May, and so a couple months before. In fact, I don't even know if I had named this as a possibility to even you, let alone our leadership at the church. But I was out on a prayer walk on a Friday, and I just had this sense. How do we hear from God? I believe it was God putting this in my mind and my heart, and it became very clear on this walk as I was praying about the summer and how to celebrate 25 years. It was like, you know what? Maybe celebration can be quiet as opposed to big and lots of people, and just thought, what if it's a time to pull back and take some time off and reflectively celebrate what's happened over the last 25 years and listen for how God has been at work. And yeah, so then as I was thinking about that, it was like it's about playing and praying and having fun, having time to just have fun and relax and enjoy. For me, fun is often active, physically active stuff, because I love to do that and be that. But also time for prayer and prayer walks and listening to worship music and those kinds of things. And what's interesting is I did have, we call it a sabbatical. Some would say it wasn't a sabbatical. Like 12, 13 years ago, I was off for 2 months. But at that point, I wasn't well. I've spoken of this before. In fact, there's some podcasts on it, just where I had a bit of I called it a funk, but it was a depression looking back, and now I know. But I wasn't healthy. I just needed to be off. And so interesting how unhealthy I was at that time compared to how healthy I feel now. At that time, I was on overdrive when I was off on sabbatical.
Yes,
I had a plan. I was reading a book a week. I was interviewing people all over the country. I was reporting in with a report every week to our leadership team, and who would want that report every Friday? But I kind of took this angst and unhealthiness, and I just took the drive and into like not things around the church, but those kinds of things. So even to head into this one, very, very differently.
Right.
It felt good. It felt right. And I guess, as we experienced it together, it really was that. There was a lot of prayerful conversation. It wasn't necessarily always, kneeling down, praying for hours at a time, but I mean, we're out on long hikes and asking prayerful, reflective conversations. A question that kind of popped up as we were doing this was, as we would think about, say, one of our kids or a good friend or family member, colleague, would say, well, what would your prayer be for that person? And to me, that was a prayer, So yeah, lots of fun, lots of good times, lots of activity, play, and lots of prayerful connections with each other, with people. It was good.
And reflective time, within conversation, just having that extended time, and the space, as you said, it was very spacious. I think a lot of days, while there may have been a lot of activity, but what one of the beauties of the time was that if there was that activity, that was the day. That was the day. That's what we were doing that day. And to really give your focus to the activity alone, without the I've got to be back for this, or I have to make sure I get this part done, or I get that part done. And that idea of sabbatical, coming obviously from the word Sabbath, and just taking a Sabbath, even though that weekly bit, just to have space, even a little bit of space, just allows for your mind and heart to go so many more places. And so this was just, an extended time doing that. And it's amazing. It was amazing what God can do with that, and give that and re-energize you and take you to different places, and just things and people you haven't had time to really focus on, and in an in-depth way. So it was when
I think what did that lead to? How is God at work in that? Even the longer conversations and connections we had with people, whether it be neighbors, or whether it be people who would meet on the path or on some of our hikes, or we did a big trip around Lake Superior, and I can think of 3 or 4 encounters that we had that because like you said, we weren't squeezing this into the midst of everything else. That was it. We just felt you had a space. You had space and you had time, and we had some just incredible encounters and experiences with people that it's just good for your soul. Good for your soul. The couple we met from Germany going around Lake Superior, who got engaged on the hike that we were on, and we're camping beside it. I could go on. We just had a beautiful. We may never see them again. So it wasn't purposeful in the sense of so much of my life is purposeful. I think that was a bigger piece too. For play and pray to be it as far as a focus for the summer. Is a very different identity from what my normal identity would be, where I'm producing and I'm working and I'm leading and I'm driving. And it was just felt like the right thing to do, and it was good for my soul. Like it was really good for my soul.
That's where the previous sabbatical was not one that re-energized you, because you weren't able to separate yourself from that identity of, I have to produce.
Yeah.
So even though I'm off, I'm not sitting around doing nothing. I'm doing this, I'm doing this, I'm doing this, so I need to prove it to everybody. Which, as you said, nobody was looking for that.
Yeah.
You were.
Oh yeah, no,
you were
that was
offer,
all.
You were giving it. Yeah, exactly.
And it was a sign of of an health I was at the time.
Yes.
Whereas this, I would say, and I'm not saying like I loved it. Like I think we loved it. Totally enjoyed it. The first couple of weeks, I think, if I'm being honest, like it was a big change. So that was part of the deeper prayerful piece, was just okay, no, your identity is not as a minister, a lead minister, a leader. It's a child of God, and you can be more than okay stopping and not producing and doing, and there was just a really beautiful getting through over that first little hump.
Yes.
Just a beautiful space that we entered into.
Yeah, and there's always that transition time too, and sort of that everybody needs when you're moving from one to the other. Those big kind of changes, absolutely, like a holiday to back to work and all of those things. Yeah, for sure. But it's, I mean, you say, and I think we talked about this a little bit, that you say not producing, right? But I think we had some conversations where it's like, well, you may not be producing in the same manner that you do when you're at work, but you are producing. You are something new, right? Something different, and it is also worthwhile, and it is also, beautiful.
Yeah, it was almost stopping long enough to let God be the producer,
right,
and produce something in me that I'm still. I think we're still going to be discerning and living into the impact of this time, how God has worked in my life.
Yeah. So what would you say out of some of this? What are some?
If I just before we lose that one, like can I it just hit me like I think some people, the life, like it was still purposeful though, like so, but in a very different way. I got to do things that I don't normally get to do. So my Aunt Pam, Uncle John were with us from New Brunswick, and it was great to have them. And they were around with my parents for a couple of days. Normally I'd be running off to work. They might stay over, that'd be great, but I was around. And so I made my mom and my Aunt Pam breakfast porridge 2 days in a row. I would never get the opportunity to do that normally. So I guess I just think what is production, what is purpose? God can give that to us wherever we are and whatever we're doing. Yeah,
for sure.
Yeah. What was
so I mean, I think just looking at all of that conversation and all of that space and different things, it certainly wasn't, while the activities we were doing, we'd fully be immersed and present in what those were, but the conversations and those things that happened definitely also were reflective, which was kind of the point, reflective of 25 plus years, and couldn't help but then go to, so what does it look like going forward? And a few ideas and thoughts. So were there some things or what sort of came out of that?
Yeah. And what was great was it was fairly organic, as opposed to sometimes I'm all about love and being intentional, and I think but that wasn't what the summer was. So, but there was one thing in that way that I really wanted to do, and that was I wanted to write down, because I'm much more visual than just keeping things. It helped for me to see things, so I wanted to write down some of the highlights as part of the celebration, and actually just we talk about catching up to what God has done, just catching up to some of what God had done over the last 25 years, and so we put big pieces of paper around our living room kitchen area, and just kind of did 5-year blocks and tried to remember, okay, what happened then, and what happened then, and what happened then, and I mean that led to some very, very relevant reflections as you look at that. As far as just oh wow, that's so clear. Certainly one was that God really does provide, that God provides opportunities to do amazing things, and the resources to do it. When I look back and think of some of the things that we've been able to be a part of, from Wellspring Cancer Support Center to the Journey Neighborhood Center to, this new church building, not new now, but it was at one point. Yeah, just wow, like big things. They say that we often overestimate what we can do in a short period of time and underestimate what we can do in a long period of time, and just see that long view of what God can do and provide in 25 years. Another one is I look at like the people that and just so much gratitude for the people who we've been blessed to share this journey with. And so just see the people that have been involved over the years, and that God really does, as we know, work through people. And so as we continue to build the ministry and life here at NBUC, it really is important to continue to do our very best to try to have the right people on the team, because God will work through people to make amazing things happen.
So looking back, it's like so many stories in the Bible, how people sort of forget what God has done, but like, look what God has done.
Exactly.
So it's a good time to do that, and then it just gives you that trust for renewed trust for that in the future and what God can do. So were there any beyond then, after the reflections? Were there
as far as what might be coming up? I mean, definitely having the time together, Katrina and I, part of that was, we really enjoy a time together. There's lots of things we can do. Katrina retires in 5 years as a teacher, and so would see that as a time where there would be a transition for me. We see the church as our life, and can still be involved. I don't say retirement, I say more of a transition, but that would mean that 5 years from now, I can definitely envision a new lead minister, or whatever configuration of our structure is that would take on that lead role. And so just want to work towards that, want to think about that, pray about that, build towards that sooner rather than later. And not saying that I or we don't exist anymore, or aren't part of the team, but just feel like that would be a good time to make that transition where we could support the leadership and still be very much a part of things in whatever roles God is calling us to do. And it could be us at that point, because we could do more things together, which we would love, more things around the church, but also together, but also more things in other capacities as well. And then the other, just looking at the bigger picture, gives you time to do that when you step back a little bit. And we have a significant mortgage on our building, $1 million still, and just really want to work, talk, pray, strategize around how we can get that eliminated, meaning paid off, sooner than the next 12 years or whatever it is that we would currently be at. Just really and just feel called to try to help make that happen as part of our leadership responsibility.
So that kind of came up as as something that that's something to tackle and work towards. For sure.
So if anyone's listening, got $1 million, I want to throw at that.
That'll take care of it really quickly.
It likely will take a few of us, but like a number.
Definitely, but
it'd be a collective thing, or anyway. But
the release of that debt, just that then allows for the resources to go to ministry and to more people, and so. It's obviously a practical thing that has to happen, and the blessing of the building and all of that is we are realizing, but you just know, where with that relieved, what more could be done.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's a beautiful vision.
Absolutely.
To have.
And I think that it ties into, like, under this sort of umbrella. I just felt called to read Philippians 2 all summer long. So. Almost every morning I read Philippians 2, and in the Message translation, it talks all about humility, but in the Message translation, it puts it this way: it says, "Put yourself aside and help others get ahead." Put yourself aside, and help others get ahead. And so this is what I mean. Like, I don't know, this here's the plan for every day of my life over the next 5, 10, 15, 20, 25 years. But I do feel like that is an important thing for me to be more intentional about. How do I put myself aside and help others get ahead, help mentor, help enable others, help grow our team, both in numbers, but also in just support and leadership.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I don't want to go backwards in the conversation, but I feel like, would you want to share any highlights of the time off? What would, if you picked, one or two, what would you want to go into any more detail on those?
Yeah. And it's not that there aren't any. That's not why I'm stalling here. It's just like which ones to choose. Yeah. We did a trip around Lake Superior, and I think again that having that time allowed us to. It's a long drive, but it's worthwhile. I'm telling you, man. It was, and just the hiking, and the views and the beauty. But to kind of drill down even to be more concrete, again, this would be one of those amazing experiences that we had because we had time and space. I think that God blessed us with. We had this incredible conversation with these two motorcyclists at this one stop as we're going around Lake Superior, and we were all watching this beautiful view where there was this train track that comes around the mountain with water on the one side, and as we were there, the train actually came, so it was quite spectacular. But we must have had a 30-minute conversation with the couple of these guys, and they were on their motorcycles traveling around Lake Superior, and the one lives on a reserve. He's indigenous, and it was just really just a blessing to hear him talk about his reserve and some of the challenges they face, but some of the amazing things they've done to put things in a really positive light where they are and experience new life on the reserve. And so
it was a really neat conversation to have that firsthand experience, and and to talk to somebody who's living on the reservation, but has had just how some things work and has had education and has had a made a living. He's an engineer and but still living there. And so while there are good things happening, what the challenges are. So it was just really, really, it was really interesting to have that conversation firsthand. And would we have sat around for 30 minutes, just while we pulled off on a rest stop, just to put something in the garbage, I think. But and and it was cute because we ended up talking so long with the two of them that this train came at the end of the conversation, and the one guy said, "Well, Randy, I think we talked long enough. We got the train."
Exactly.
So it was really neat.
That was a conversation, an encounter experience that I'll always remember. And I think
absolutely.
Having the space allowed for that. Yeah. So there's so many different. Again, my parents mentioned it was just such a gift to have so much extra time with them, and that was also part of why it felt right to just take some time. And I think just the daily routine. Again, being more spacious, that time to start the morning with a longer walk. Together,
Right. Well, and I think there were, as much as there was a lot of activity, there were a couple of days where it was some non-activity, just sort of relaxing, doing maybe a few odd jobs around the house, and then reading for an extended period of time.
That's true. I read 4 books. I read regularly leadership and Christian faith books, and that's part of my morning routine. And so I read about a book a month. That's kind of what that takes me down as far as just having that time every morning as part of my morning ritual routine, devotional time. But to read like in the afternoon, sitting in the backyard, that's not something I've ever done before. I don't know if you can imagine that, but it happened.
Well, it was pretty shocking.
So I read 4 like different kind of books that people have been. Actually, all 4 came from the Fold Festival, the Festival of Literary Diversity, I think. And so they were really, really, again, good for my soul to have that time and space. Once I got over the fact that you can just sit in an afternoon and read. Right? Yeah, exactly. But then just the content too was really, really beautiful. Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's great.
That's awesome.
Oh, well, thanks, Katrina. Anything else that could? Yeah. I was supposed to close, so I didn't know when.
No. That's. I have no more questions. You're off the hook now.
Okay, that's great. Well, thanks, Katrina, and thanks to everyone, and just really appreciate the life that we share with you, part of this church at NBUC or beyond that. Certainly, you're a part of our life, and even if you're not, we hope you might be one day. That would be great too. But hopefully this has been helpful as we all just think about our life and the opportunity, or maybe the need to take time to rest and break and pause and space. And certainly, as you mentioned, Katrina, the Sabbath is a weekly example of that. I think, at the end of the day, what we experienced was a bigger Sabbath that lasted for a couple months, and it does all of that and more. So great to share that with you today, and hopefully it's helpful. Thanks so much for just this life that we get to share and being a part of the Good News Podcast family. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Good News with Jamie Holtum, and hope to see you again real soon.